In the Gilded Age, one name stood above all others, synonymous with unimaginable wealth and power: Vanderbilt. Their story isn't just about money. It's a saga of ambition, empire building, and a spectacular fall from grace. It all began with a 16-year-old boy and a borrowed $100. His name was Cornelius Vanderbilt. From a single ferry boat in New York Harbor, the man they called the Commodore built a shipping and railroad empire that would dominate American industry. He was ruthless, shrewd, and by the time of his death in 1877, he was the richest man in America. He left a fortune of over $100 million, equivalent to billions today, to his son, William Henry. His final words to him were a simple command: "You have been a good boy. You have taken care of me. Keep the money together." William doubled the family fortune, but his children had a different vision. For them, wealth wasn't something to be created, but something to be spent. The third generation of Vanderbilts embarked on an unprecedented spree of conspicuous consumption. They built magnificent mansions along Fifth Avenue, sprawling country estates like the Biltmore, and threw parties that were the stuff of legend. They weren't captains of industry. They were American royalty, defining high society with their lavish lifestyles. Their focus shifted from the grit of the railroad yards to the glamour of the ballroom. But empires built on spending cannot last. As the 20th century dawned, the world changed. Income tax was introduced, railroads faced new competition, and the family's vast fortune began to splinter. The great mansions were too expensive to maintain. The family trust dwindled with each passing generation. Within just a few decades, the colossal wealth that the Commodore had amassed was all but gone. By 1973, when the Vanderbilt family held a reunion, not a single millionaire was among them. The great houses were sold off or turned into museums, silent monuments to a bygone era. The Vanderbilt story serves as a powerful lesson. It took one generation to build an empire, 2 to enjoy it, and just 3 to lose it all. An epic tale of how America's greatest fortune vanished into thin air.
In the early 19th century, America was a land of raw ambition, a chaotic and turbulent nation still finding its footing. It was in this crucible that a boy named Cornelius Vanderbilt was forged. Born on Staten Island, with barely $1 to his name and an education that ended at age 11, he saw not chaos, but opportunity. The world around him was a churning sea of commerce, and he was determined to become its master. At just 16, he borrowed $100 from his mother to buy a small boat, a simple periauga. While others saw a ferry, Vanderbilt saw the first piece of an empire. He started by shuttling passengers and cargo between Staten Island and Manhattan. The work was brutal, the competition fierce. But Vanderbilt wasn't just working hard. He was studying the currents, not just of the water, but of business. He learned to undercut his rivals, work longer hours, and carry more cargo than anyone thought possible. He quickly earned a nickname that would follow him for life: the Commodore. His first venture was a success, but it was just a stepping stone. Vanderbilt looked beyond the New York harbor and saw the future: steam. While others clung to sail, he poured his profits into the new, volatile world of steamboats. This was his first great gamble. He didn't just buy a boat, he built faster, more luxurious vessels, challenging the established monopolies that had grown fat and complacent. His tactics were ruthless. He would enter a route, slash fares to almost nothing, and bleed his competitors dry. When they were on the brink of collapse, he'd either buy them out for pennies on the dollar or they would pay him to leave. This wasn't just business, it was warfare. Vanderbilt's philosophy was brutally simple: be faster, be cheaper, and be more relentless than anyone else. He had an almost supernatural instinct for the flow of money and power. He saw vulnerabilities where others saw strength, and he exploited them without hesitation. In a time of unreliable contracts and shifting allegiances, Vanderbilt's word was his bond, but his mercy was non-existent. He was building more than a shipping line. He was building a new way of doing business. The boy from Staten Island was becoming a titan, and his gaze was already turning towards the next great frontier, the railroads. His empire was just beginning. Fortunes fade. Stories remain. This was Silent Fortunes. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more. He was the Commodore, a king of the seas, a shipping magnate who built a fortune on water. But Cornelius Vanderbilt saw the future wasn't on the waves, it was on the rails. At an age when most men retire, he sold his entire fleet, every last ship. His friends thought he was insane. His rivals laughed. But Vanderbilt had a vision, and it ran on steel. He set his sights on the railroads, the chaotic, fragmented web that crisscrossed America. His first target? The New York and Harlem Railroad. He bought up shares, quietly at first, then aggressively. Wall Street speculators tried to short him, betting he would fail. They drove the price down, but Vanderbilt just kept buying. And buying. When they realized their mistake, it was too late. He cornered the market and squeezed them dry, making millions and sending a clear message. A new titan had arrived. But he was just getting started. He wanted the New York Central, the most critical rail line into the city. Its owners refused to sell. So, Vanderbilt declared war. In the dead of winter, he closed the only bridge into Manhattan, the Albany Bridge, which he controlled. All trains, all cargo, all passengers stopped cold. The city descended into chaos. The New York Central's stock plummeted. Vanderbilt bought it all for pennies on the dollar. He had starved his competition into submission. With this ruthless move, he consolidated his empire, forging a unified, efficient rail system from scattered lines. He built Grand Central Depot, a monument to his power and vision, a gateway to a modern America. Cornelius Vanderbilt didn't just build a railroad empire. He redefined what it meant to be a mogul, leaving a legacy of ambition and brutal efficiency that shaped the nation. In the heart of America's Gilded Age, one name echoed louder than all others: Vanderbilt. An empire forged in steam and steel, built by the will of one man. He was the Commodore. He built a monument to power and ambition. But what happens when the architect of an empire is gone? The torch was passed, not to builders, but to inheritors. The fire that burned the Commodore was the ambition born of nothing. For his descendants, that fire was gone, replaced by the crushing weight of a legacy they could never surpass. So they didn't try to build, they tried to prove. Their battlefields weren't the stock market, but the society invitation lists. Wealth was no longer a tool of dominance, but a weapon in a war for social acceptance. Every marble palace built on Fifth Avenue wasn't just a home, but a declaration. Every lavish party wasn't just a celebration, but a desperate attempt to outshine their own kin. The family's competitive fire, once aimed at the world, had now turned inward, consuming itself. And while the family's gaze was turned inward, busy with their own social wars, the world outside their gilded cages was changing. The roar of the internal combustion engine began to drown out the whistle of the steam locomotive. Trucks and automobiles carved new paths on new roads, chipping away at the foundation of Vanderbilt's railroad dominance. But the family, insulated by their immense wealth, couldn't see the writing on the wall. They were stuck in the past. The Great Depression was the final, devastating blow. The family's fortune hemorrhaged value. The lavish spending became a ruinous addiction. Within a few short decades, the colossal Vanderbilt fortune had all but vanished. This was not a collapse overnight. It was a slow, creeping decay, a story of how an empire built to last forever can be dismantled from within, until all that remains is a famous name. The dynasty didn't end with a bang, it simply faded away. There was no single, cataclysmic event that brought down the House of Vanderbilt. No stock market crash that wiped them out overnight. No political scandal that dismantled their empire. Instead, the decline was a slow, quiet unraveling, a death by 1,000 cuts, administered by their own hands. It was the rustle of silk, the clinking of champagne glasses, the constant, unending construction of palaces they barely lived in. The fall of the Vanderbilts wasn't a bang. It was a long, drawn-out whisper. The fortune, amassed by the Commodore with ruthless efficiency, was treated not as a legacy to be grown, but as an infinite wellspring for personal indulgence. His heirs became consumers, not creators. While the first generation built railroads, the third built mansions. They competed not in the boardroom, but in the ballroom. Who could throw the most lavish party? Who could build the most ostentatious summer cottage in Newport? These weren't investments. They were monuments to ego, each one draining millions from the family coffers. The Biltmore Estate in North Carolina, a staggering 250-room shadow, was a masterpiece of architecture but a financial black hole. It required a staff of hundreds and an annual budget that could have funded a small corporation. This extravagant spending was fueled by a deeper issue, a complete loss of the founder's vision. The Commodore's grit and business acumen were diluted with each passing generation. They inherited the money but not the mindset. They saw themselves as American aristocracy, above the grubby business of making money. They were patrons of the arts, socialites, and yachtsmen. Noble pursuits, perhaps, but not profitable ones. The family split into factions, each branch managing its own inheritance with varying degrees of incompetence. There was no central leadership, no one to rein in the spending or steer the family's collective wealth toward new, productive ventures. They were a fleet of beautiful, rudderless ships, slowly drifting apart and taking on water. By the mid-20th century, the great Vanderbilt mansions were being sold off or turned into museums. The family name, once a synonym for unimaginable wealth and power, began to fade. At a family reunion in 1973, not a single one of the 120 descendants present was a millionaire. The railroad empire was gone, the shipping lines were a memory, and the fortune had simply evaporated. It was spent on parties that are long forgotten, on houses that now charge admission to tourists, and on a lifestyle that was utterly unsustainable. The story of the Vanderbilts serves as a quiet, melancholic reminder that a legacy isn't just about what you build, but about what you choose to preserve. The story of the Vanderbilt dynasty, from its meteoric rise to its quiet fading, leaves us with a profound and timeless lesson. It's a tale that echoes through the halls of history, whispering a truth we often choose to ignore. Wealth, in all its staggering immensity, has its limits. Cornelius Vanderbilt, the Commodore, built an empire of steel and steam, a monument to ambition and relentless drive. He believed he was creating a legacy to last for generations, a financial fortress impervious to the erosion of time. But he was mistaken. The first lesson the Vanderbilts teach us is that wealth can build an empire, but it cannot preserve a vision. Money is a powerful tool, but it is a tool without a soul. It requires a hand to guide it, a vision to direct it. When the guiding vision fades, the tool lies dormant, and the empire begins to crumble. This leads us to the second, more personal lesson. Money is an amplifier. It doesn't create character, it reveals it. It takes the qualities already present within a person and magnifies them for the world to see. For some of the Vanderbilt heirs, the immense fortune amplified a desire for social status and lavish parties. It fueled a race to outspend one another. The discipline that built the fortune was replaced by a culture of spending it. Their story serves as a stark reminder that without a strong moral compass and a sense of purpose beyond accumulation, wealth can become a destructive force. Finally, the Vanderbilt saga teaches us the most humbling lesson of all. No fortune can outpace time. Time is the ultimate equalizer. It turns grand estates into museums, mighty fortunes into footnotes, and powerful dynasties into distant memories. The Vanderbilts' wealth, once a raging river, was diverted into 1,000 smaller streams, eventually seeping into the vast ocean of the economy. They tried to defy time with marble and gold, but time always wins. It reminds us that what truly endures is not what we own, but what we build within others. Knowledge, values, and a sense of purpose. The greatest legacy isn't a number in a bank account, but a vision that inspires future generations to build something of their own. Fortunes fade. Stories remain. This was Silent Fortunes. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more.